at me.
Can't figure out how to drop it off.
Wow. You guys must have good friends. Either that or your kids are home or sugar rush goes a long way.
He's hiding it from everybody else. Like it's treasure chest. That was Cynthia. Somebody dropped off a bag of candy from my son for graduation.
But you're making reference apparently to
Quite exciting.
but it's landed.
It's not a new mystery now.
Some sort of under control.
Who's dropping off?
Right? No, I mean, and it's interesting because it's like, it is interesting because it was so low to the first thing I thought of, it's swine from Nevada, it would be like a mountain wave or something.
Yeah.
But it wasn't when they were close to
See, Loretta.
They are low.
just the blind rock.
We were trying to eat this off. So sit on the
How are you? Decided to come in, it's not.
Hang on back.
Friday.
Yeah.
And then I'm the
I'm going to go ahead and read the announcements. For those of you watching tonight's meeting virtually, the meeting is available to live stream via the Park District website. All information about Park District meetings can be found at winpark.org under the Park District Info tab by selecting board meetings and videos. Public comment is accepted in person. A link to the video and audio will be posted immediately following this evening's meeting. To improve the sound while listening to the meeting, please turn up the volume on your computer and turn up the volume on the website. The meeting packet for tonight's meeting is located on the website. For those attending tonight's meeting, the emergency exits from the room are the door behind you or through the foyer. To improve the quality of the sound, there is a boom microphone directed towards the commissioners. The microphone will likely pick up additional audience noise and sidebar conversations. If it's difficult to hear, please consider moving to the front row. This is a business meeting, not a sporting event, so the board asks for your cooperation to maintain decorum. There's no clapping or booing. Please be considerate and refrain from interrupting board members and other speakers. We are a community coming together to discuss difficult issues in a civil and respectful fashion. Calling to order the June 20th, 2024 committee and regular board meeting. Roll call.
Commissioner Cummings is absent. Commissioner James?
Here.
Commissioner Rapp?
Here.
Commissioner Root?
Present.
Commissioner Tyson? He's absent. Commissioner Lesson?
Here.
Commissioner Cotto?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any requests for changes or additions to the agenda?
Madam Chair, I just had a question about one of the vouchers, and it's the Green Associates Inc. So if we could, I don't have a problem with compensation paid, just would like to ask some questions about the voucher.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the June 20th agenda?
So
Second?
second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public comment. This is your opportunity to address the board on any issue. When called upon, please come to the center position in front of the commissioners, stand at the podium, speak loudly or into the microphone, state your name for the record, and speak directly to the board. Per the Winnetka Park District's policy manual, all comments must be kept to 3 minutes. This is not a question and answer forum, so please do not expect an immediate response. If you prefer to share your comments in writing this evening, you may do so by leaving your comments with a member of the Park District staff. Is there anyone on the left side? Steve, would you like to speak? I didn't know whether to go left or right, front to back.
Can you hear me okay? So, the Chicago Tribune has stated there are allegations of potential conflicts between Warren James's company and the Lakota Group, as well as between Eric Lawson and the trustee for Orchard 2020, and finally President Cotto with the Open Meetings Act. As a taxpayer, I think we all deserve to know what the board is going to do to investigate these allegations, and when you will report back to the public as to whether they are accurate or not. I guess you probably wish you hadn't called on me.
Quite all right. Quite all right. Is there anyone else on, in the first row we have our Kemper speakers, in the second row of this section? Mary, come on up.
Good evening. I have just a couple of comments about Centennial. I've proposed for Centennial twice now to have the ADA universal accessibility at the top of the bluff from the parking area to a nicely designed ADA area very similar to what Lakota Group built at Tower. To get to the beach and the water, we should use the existing access at Elder, making the necessary modifications to be reasonable. The proposed ramp at Centennial is not reasonable because of possible damage to the bluff, which is a big concern, and the excessive cost that it will be to build that ramp. I also feel that the users of the ramp, dogs, patrons of the beach, challenged persons of the beach, are in harm's way. Certainly the dogs are expected to be on leash. This leash rule is very difficult to control and presents another issue for our young staff. The universal ADA that is constantly referred to as ADA compliance that we all desire, but it must be reasonable and without a large financial cost. Have ADA at the top of Centennial and use with the necessary modification what exists today at Elder. Looking at the Elder proposed plan, ADA will exist at Elder as it should. There is a big play on words with the ADA wording of universal. The proposed ramp at Centennial is a hazardous situation. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Joanna?
What Mary said.
Okay. The back row, Mickey, Ted? Okay.
You were right last time, but I did stage left. I was confused in my head. Anyway. They say you shouldn't talk when you're unhappy. So, okay. So, by the way, I guess I'm a felon now, or will be. Your partner in this, Justin Nishkia, apparently I've been handed a citation. I haven't taken it, that I've trespassed on his property, which is fascinating to me because the police were never there and they made this determination based on stuff he gave them. So I guess it's sort of the same thing as the land swap that is dormant, which I asked about a couple months ago. I asked, can you define what dormant means and what you would do if Mr. Ishbia came along and demanded that the transaction be completed? And didn't expect an answer that night, but there has been no answer at all. What is the Park District's position on this? What happens when Mr. Ishbia, who is such a great person, such a philanthropist, comes along and demands that he wants that land? What does dormant mean? It means nothing. It's like the it's funny, right? Mr. Ishby is a big mortgage person, right? Have you heard about the zombie mortgages? I'm sure you have. People that are getting their houses sold out from under them while they're standing in their kitchens because of a mortgage that went dormant years earlier and then was bought for pennies on the dollar, and now along companies like Mr. Ishby's come along and file foreclosure and take that land. And he might not even need that land, although the Park District should say what it's going to do if he comes along demanding it, because it's just hanging over our heads the entire time. And what's the point of improving that property if it's not even ours? But he might not even need it, because if you look at the details, and I am certain that he has people that have, if you look at the details of how this is all laid out, there is no access for the public to the beach in front of his lot, because he owns all the land above the ordinary high water mark that is to the south of the steel groin there. He can dictate who will be able to walk on that land. So if the Park District proceeds, as I said in my email, if the Park District proceeds with its plan to put a fence on top of the groin, which is completely unnecessary for any shoreline stabilization, then he will be able to hire some guy or gal to sit in a lawn chair on his property and tell the public, nope, this is private sand, you can't walk here, and thus the staircase over his stone breakwater is inaccessible. The public can't walk along the top of the groin anymore unless they're nimble. But then I bet you he'll do the same thing that they're doing out west and saying that you're in his airspace and you're trespassing by walking over his property without touching it. And so this Park District needs to represent the people. You got a guy that doesn't give a rat's patootie about anyone but himself. You're supposed to represent the people. You need to tell us what a dormant contract is and what's going to happen when he comes along and demands that it be changed. You're going to have to explain how people are going to get to the stairs over the breakwater on Park District land, not on his land. And finally, you know what? You should just do it. It's not a vocal minority, as people keep saying.
Please wrap up your comments. Your time is up.
You've let other people talk. There's no one else speaking. You've let other people go significantly longer than 12 seconds over. Why are you cutting me off?
Please wrap up your comments. Your time is up.
You've let other people go significantly longer. Are you discriminating against me for some reason? There is nothing, me talking for an extra 45 or 50 seconds now, there's no decorum issue. I am not in...
Please wrap up your comments. So your time is up.
So, I guess I have always wanted to believe that the people that serve here are doing it for the right reasons. The more that goes on, the more I doubt that. So, is the Park District going to provide an answer? What will they do when Mr. Ishby comes along and demands the land swap? What will they do when their statements that people can access the beach in front of his house prove to be false?
Sir, please wrap up your comments.
Just let me know. Just let us know. That's all the public wants to know. And I'm hopeful that there's going to be a binding decision.
Thanks, Ted. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Moving on to item number 3, the consent agenda. We actually have a discussion of the vouchers, not necessarily removal from the consent agenda, correct?
Sorry.
Yeah, I just have a question.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So without objection or request for removal of any specific item from the consent agenda for individual consideration, we will act on the following items with a single vote. 3.1, the regular meeting minutes of May 23, 2024. 3.2, the closed session meeting minutes, May 23rd, 2024. 3.3, the annual meeting minutes, May 23rd, 2024. 3.4, the May financials. 3.5, the vouchers in the amount of $671,110.46. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
A roll call vote?
Discuss the two
Oh,
items.
sorry. Sorry. That's the discussion.
Thank you.
Apologies.
Yes, Lord, thank you. Somebody's having trouble with this.
All right, let's see. Okay, there we go. Yeah, as I went through the vouchers, I noted the voucher for Green Associates. I understand they're architects, and I understand that a contract was signed sometime on or about a year ago. in May. And it was a feasibility study, as I read the contract. Thank you, Executive Director Nizal. Feasibility study to look at either expansion or the addition of a new ice arena. I don't recall that this was ever specifically discussed during our budget review, and I had the pleasure of meeting with Mr. Cropper and also the managers, thank you very much, as we went through that. So I would have expected something like this to be, at least be footnoted in the budget. I think it's great. We all love ice. My concern is that if we are doing feasibility studies for ice, and I'm sure this will be handled by our new competent executive director, look at opportunities for other interests for the use of our landlocked community, be it the swimming pool. The swimming pool resurrects itself historically every time we look at ice. You may know this, Executive Director Nizal, but there's actually plans that were finalized and drawn for the construction of a pool. I don't remember, I think it was sometime around 2006, 2007. And then there also is great interest in maintaining open space. So it's just a comment, and thank you for your attention to my comment. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Now we'll have that roll call vote.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Foto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
We have a presentation from Kemper Sports. We have Miles with us, our new director.
Good evening. Vince and Mary Kate are not with us this evening, regrettably. They have another commitment that they can move. So I will be presenting for you tonight. I'm going to let Andrew start with the Groningen update.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me. Really, golf course is on schedule, as we have been the whole time. We continue, in the last month, continue to do a lot of regular maintenance and just completing our activities and projects we got going on. Construction punch list items from Wadsworth and then also DeMayo. Those have all been completed to date. So the golf course is in good standings with some of the repairs that needed to be made. Stair covering options are still being reviewed. Installation will be occurring prior to opening. Timber repairs to the stairs have all been completed, and golf course signage and tee markers have been finalized and ordered at this point. And when those arrive, we will be installing them prior to opening as well. Golf course is really shaping up. We've really kind of started to dive into the details and fine-tuning things, lowering mowing heights, mowing on a regular basis, really and fertilizing and applying plant protectants is our main focus on all surfaces. Really rolling 3 times a week, mowing twice a week, top dressing, tees, really, and greens and tees, fairways, everything through this first little heat wave we've had up in the 90s has all performed really well from my viewpoint. So I'm really happy with how we're progressing and the programs we have in place. Fairways, we've got down. We're still working on fertilizing a few of the last fairways that have been a little bit behind, but there's only a handful of those, and we're mowing those twice a week right now and getting around. Par 3 as well, we're mowing that twice a week. So all 27 holes are being maintained at the same regular practices. Even the new sand base greens that we installed, 18, 5, 9, and I've called number 10, which will be the chipping green. All those are being maintained at the same mowing heights now and the same practices. So when I say 27 holes are all being maintained, that's everything across the board. So really happy where the progress has happened in the last 45 days, and look forward to what we see occur in the next 30 days and then 45 days for us. So I would consider this last 30 days crossing another milestone into bringing this golf course to opening.
The pictures are compelling. The drone video is always compelling.
Looks pretty even without sound.
Thank you.
Is that Nikki driving more?
So right now there's a lot going on. Andrew and his team have the golf course looking great. It continues to grow in. So on the driving range, that continues to be a huge source of revenue driver for us. It is busy at all times of day from the time we open until the time we close. We had a successful fitting event 2 weeks ago with Callaway, and we had another one yesterday actually. So we were having a lot of good feedback from those. And good participation in all those events. So we have, I think, 6 more Callaway fittings scheduled throughout the year, and then Titleist will have a fitting out in August with the launch of their new woods. Discover Golf, we've been meeting with Richard Franklin to discuss development of fall programming and how we can help grow that program. They've had quite a few juniors out. Their summer program started this week, and we'll have some social media posts going out to support that. New logo went out yesterday, and that is up on the website and social media, so that's exciting. The announcement for my position, I believe, is scheduled for next Wednesday. Drone footage, they were out a couple of weeks ago. That was the video you just saw. They will be out again next week, taking a little bit more footage, and then we will have them out as we get closer to opening, doing hole-by-hole flyovers that we'll be able to post online. Opening day planning is in the works. We're going through the day of details, invite lists, how we're going to get the word out to the public, and then dates and times. And then advertising, we are going to be looking to start pay-per-click advertisings and social campaigns. And then we do have a print ad going up in August in the Chicago District Golfer magazine. Golf carts are expected, they are actually expected second week of July. Work began this week on electrifying the cart barn, so that's exciting to getting those new carts. Liquor license application has been submitted. It was actually approved on Tuesday by the village, so now we're working for state approval. Menu development, we are working with vendors, had some meetings this week. We'll continue to get that set up. frequent fairway program. We actually had our first player complete the program on our property. So they got a new Titleist Pokey wedge that'll be shipped out to them here in a few weeks. So that's exciting, and we're continuing to see that program drive some participation in the driving range. And then we also have high school golf that we've been speaking to that will be joining us after we reopen. So working with them to develop their programming throughout the fall. For our financial update, again, another strong month in May. Revenues surpassed budget by right around $20,000. Our cost of sales were a little bit lower at $1,760 on a budget of $5,531. That's just due to a little bit less merchandise sales. Our first fitting day was actually rained out. Payroll expenses came in under budget. Andrew and his team are doing a great job of managing those expenses. We had some savings on range as well due to all the rain throughout the month. We were not using that. Operating expenses came in right at budget, just a little bit higher. That's a lot of deferred expenses that had been budgeted in previous months. So as you can see, year to date, still pretty far underneath. We did have some savings in water, 11,000 favorable. Again, labor and grounds was 2,000 favorable. And then in golf, again, merchandise sales were a little bit under budget, a little bit to the first Callaway fitting getting rained out. Do expect that to see that ramp up, especially as we get closer to opening, especially once we open. And then we did have a payroll overage in golf itself, offset by the range savings there. And then G&A expenses were $569 favorable to budget. So our net income for the month came in at negative $77.7 on a budget of negative $138. So year to date, we are just over $350,000 ahead in net income. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Regarding water utilization,
Yes.
have you used any potable water yet?
I don't believe so, Andrew. Zero.
Zero. That's a positive sign.
Yes.
I understand or I'm familiar with the great work that the village did with Strand to allow us to utilize stormwater for irrigation purposes, obviously best management practices. I would like to make sure that Kemper properly establishes a protocol with the village so that we can utilize the pump to pump the sump water, which is below the gravity outflow, back up to replenish the ponds. And then we do that, establish a protocol for when we call for that replenishment supply before it gets pumped into the basin itself, the Willow Road.
Yes, Commissioner James. We just installed less than 10 days ago. They installed the communication component where the pump on 18 that pumps back into the irrigation pond with the one on Ash Street. They now communicate. So it is in auto and it's in allow. And when our levels are down, it will fill us to the point.
Awesome.
And that just was inputted less than 10 days ago.
Great.
But yes, it's fully functional. And here we are. We're going to start to see it work here pretty soon, hopefully.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
I have one question.
Yes. Yes.
Dynamic pricing, when is that going to be sort of rolled out for this course, probably after it's open? And if consumers want to see dynamic pricing in action, what's another nearby golf course that uses it so they can kind of track it through periods of time when they might have?
I believe Sunset Valley is on dynamic pricing. So it will roll out from day one, and they'll be able to see it in action when they're booking tee times.
Right.
Yeah, Sunset does.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
It'd be great if you could just talk about when residents are able to have a view on getting on the course, what we're doing for residents. I think if you could just give that a little bit of
of course.
airtime. I am hearing people very excited to come back to the course. I am hearing a little bit of rumblings about some events that are scheduled.
Mhm.
And so if you have a few,
Yes.
talking points around
Of course. Yes.
resident height and
Yeah, no, so we are going to definitely prioritize residents playing the golf course when we do open. Residents, we are going to start probably next weekend, start back up on the golf course tours to get people out on the golf course more regularly. So anybody is always welcome to do that. Yes, when we open, we do have a plan in place to ensure the residents have that priority to get access.
great. Can't wait to hear.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Miles. The next presentation, did you have any questions? Anybody have any questions for Andrew? Okay. Next presentation is the Hat Road Playground Project update. That would be Kosa.
All right. Thank you, Christina. As everybody's aware, one of the budgeted items in 2024 was the Half Road Park Playground renovation. As you might be aware, Half Road Playground is one of the parks that's within the Winnetka Park District boundaries, but kind of, for less of a better term, a lot of people think it's in Northfield community, which it is, but it's within the Park District boundaries. It's a mini park, approximately 3.8 acres, last renovated in 2000. Currently, the park playground itself has a few issues that we've dealt with over the years. It's subpar surfacing, diminished play features that over time have been worn out. Going on 24 years of service, we did propose to have that replaced. So as we talked through that discussion, one of the things that we looked at, here's a better illustration of the playground, kind of zoomed in if you will. You can see the 2-5 structure, that is a top structure in the front. In the background, you'll see the 2 bucket swings in the back left, and then there's some small spinners, top tubes, and so forth that are kind of pepper the playground throughout. One of the things that we looked at when we looked to renovate the playground is to figure out, okay, what's in the best use of the community and what are we missing feature-wise that we can improve upon. So being such a small park space, this was one that we kept in-house. Rick Schramm, our landscape architect, worked with New Toys Products to come up with a plan to redesign this. The plan that we have put forward to the community is shown here to the right. Once again, keep it in the mindset of what it was previously. It's a topped playground, so it's got a 2-5 structure over on the right-hand side in the illustration shown here. Along with that, there's a curved balance beam. And here is a cozy dome climber. Once again, the top tubes are always a good hit within the community. We've expanded the swing set to include 2 buckets, but also 2 belt swings as well to make it a little bit more enjoyable for the community and those would like to use the swings at an older age. And then the other thing that we did was we separated the substrate here, or the surfacing, and changed that from the sand, which it was before, to a fiber, which is shown here. I know it kind of looks like sand with the illustration, I apologize. But we included a sand portion of it through here. Rick put together a couple different designs, alternates 1 and 2, which I'll show you here next. Alternate 1, shown on the right. This, once again, is the same play feature. We've changed out the cozy dome to a Mobius climber, and the configuration of the playground is just slightly tweaked a little bit. This does still maintain the curved balance beam with the top tubes, and the color of the structure has been changed as well. From there, Rick also put together a similar design that changed out the balance beam to the steppers that come off through here, as well as putting a spinner in through here. Still maintaining the Mobius climber and the swing structure throughout, and then the sand pit. To get engaged the community, 2 open houses were hosted, both on April 6th and April 10th of this year. One was hosted on site, the second one was hosted here in the community room. Approximately attendance, we had about 14 residents, and then some of our commissioners attended as well. And we gave some options to the community on what they wanted to see. So the play element designs, as well as the color selection, and a couple things ran true. One, the Mobius climber by far outweighed the Cozy Dome, so that was a clear favorite, as well as the balance beam was the second one. So going back to alternate one was the clear front runner as far as the design components that were was shown and displayed with the community, or shared with the community. And then color option for alternate one was chosen as well, with greens and browns and tans and greens with some blue complements. So more of a subtle palette, not as bright or as playful as some of our playgrounds, maybe as Hubbard Woods has, but more of a muted palette that fits well into the community. So from there, we went ahead, and here's a larger visual of what that is. Alternate one with the color scheme as well, showing that there. The next steps in the process, we did have a bid opening Tuesday of this week. We received 3 different bids for the project. Our budget for this site was $180,000. The bid did come in a little bit higher than anticipated, based on what we looked at for our previous projects and where we were allocating the funds. They did come in a little bit higher. So staff has taken it upon itself to review the bids. Of course, going to be putting forward the best response or the lowest responsible bidder to the park board, but also taking advantage of some value engineering that can be done in-house to get us back within budget. So Rick Schramm and Greg Fields are working on that as we speak, and we'll be circling back with the park board on the July 18th meeting with a recommendation to move forward with one of those bidders once we come across the lowest responsible. And we have some negotiations around the elements that we're looking to pull out of the bid and complete as value engineering in-house. Our project timeline is August of this year and going to be completed by November. All the bidders did accept that as part of the base bid, and we're looking to do a grand opening early 2025 with a ice cream social kind of kickoff, similar to what we did over at Nick Corwin. I think we served cookies for that one. But we'll see what the temperatures are and go appropriately from there. So that's pretty much the playground piece. I did want to also give a quick update as it relates to the park request around security and safety. That was an element that did come up during the discussions at the open house. Rebecca was one of the residents, along with, I forget the other lady's name off the top of my head, I apologize. But there was a few requests around concerns for safety on the park as it relates to Holder Lane and Half Road, which is the northern exit or entrance, however you look at it, for the park. One of the concepts that was brought forth by the community was to put a gate in. Gates don't always work as well as they might seem. They are functional in a residential setting, but once you get into a community setting, especially looking at different standards for ADA accessibility, we took a different approach. And here what we did, we completed the offset nook, if you will. We still have the available flows to pass through, but we did an offset, so when you're looking back from the playground to the street, the appearance is that it's fenced across the board, all the way through. So the little ones, 3, 4, 5-year-olds who might be a little anxious and want to make a run for it, if you will, aren't able to do so. There's a clear blocking of that and a way to achieve that goal. That was the message was given back to Rebecca, and I believe Shannon, if I'm not mistaken, she was rather pleased with the installation getting that done. So I just wanted to give a quick update on that as well. Otherwise, I'd like to put it to any questions that the park board has on the Platform Playground that I can answer at this time.
Any questions?
I think it looks great.
Thank you.
It really does. Cynthia?
Great, and I really appreciate the neighborhood input on it. I feel like it was a much stronger process than we had on other playgrounds, so I think that was definitely an improvement, and hopefully the neighbors are happy with it when it goes in and excited with the timeline. So good.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Costa. Moving on to item number 5, unfinished business. 5.1, update on Elder and Centennial Park and Beach project. Costa, taking a breath.
Thank you, Christina. Currently, the park district staff has had an opportunity to catch up with the village staff. We are expecting to hear back in regards to written responses to our last review comments for the Centennial Lane from the Centennial project. And once we have those, we'll follow up with any comments or concerns that we need to share back with the village. And then at that point, we should be able to set a date for the corresponding meetings as they relate to the next step in the village review process. Centennial is on its way, and Elder is also being taken into consideration. We are working on construction documents for those, and they're probably about, I would say, about 45 days post-Centennial's deliveries. So we're working on that as well. Once again, we're only able to work as far as we can up into the stormwater conveyance, and that is something that we're still waiting on to hear back from the village. I know the village has been working with their consultant, Strand Engineering, on that project, well, on their project, if you will, as it relates to the information for the discharge system to give the information back to the park district so we can move forward with a direction on what size pipes or the conveyance and all the information that we need to complete the north half of Elder Lane Park. I'm not sure, Shannon, is there anything you'd like to add to that based on conversations or?
So when we spoke to the village in regards to moving the projects forward, based on the timeline of getting those comments back fairly soon, that we would be looking potentially with turnaround of answering those questions of getting to their boards and committees in the August time frame, as we've missed the deadlines for the July time frame. So that's where we're looking at right now.
Which of the three committees goes first? Zoning Board of Appeals, Plan Commission, or Design Review Board?
So I can go ahead and answer that question. We have been told in the past that zoning is probably most appropriate to go first, because there could be potential need for a second meeting depending on the variances and what's being requested. From there, we would go to planning and then to design and review. So that would be the order.
And is zoning, just to be clear, the special use permit is first considered by zoning?
The three boards, there is no specific order that it has to be completed in. It's been suggested by village staff that zoning would probably be would be the best for the park district to engage first, planning, and then design and review. But looking at the calendars and the timelines for that, looking in August, it would actually go in the order of zoning, design and review, and then plan commission because of the dates in which those meetings are held. Then following suit, we would report back to the village council, and there would be 2 reads through council once those boards have made a determination one way or the other. We would be able to advance our permit to that next step.
It's my understanding that zoning would be least concerned with the details and more concerned with the actual uses of the property. Is that accurate?
I would say that's an accurate statement.
Okay. Are there any specific review comments that came back that give you cause for concern?
We have not seen the review comments as of yet. We expect those, basically any day now. So we should see those hopefully either by the end of the week or early Monday.
And those comments are from staff, not the commission's.
Understood.
Correct.
So staff is doing its due diligence to vet plans that we've proposed before serving it up to various committees.
That's correct.
Okay. So you'll keep us posted on the August dates. Can you get specifics out to the board so that we can plan our schedules accordingly, both for August dates and September dates? I'm assuming these committees meet once a month, or do they meet more frequently than that?
The committees do meet once a month. I have the schedule here of what that looks like. Zoning board potentially could be August 12th. The plan commission could be potentially August 28th. And design and review could be potentially August 15th. I say potentially, depending on our ability to to follow up with comments, as long as there's not another back and forth, and get our deliverables back to the village so they can move forward with their notices, if they have timeline notices that they have to put out before these meetings are can take place.
Go back several months, that's why we have the Gantt chart to understand the sequence.
Correct.
And I still see that they're blanks, and I understand that the blanks are there because we don't have any specific dates. But as we home in on getting into the process, let's please be, I'd love to see weekly updates, just internal, if only to make sure that we have proper representation and people can plan accordingly to attend these meetings.
I'll follow direction by the executive
Yeah.
director.
Yeah, that's something that we can put in our weekly.
It's obviously a great concern to the community that we advance the plans and reopen Elder and make the necessary improvements to Centennial to facilitate an off-leash dog beach.
I just wanted to note that Costa also put in to the packet the most recent cost data for both Elder and Centennial and the most recent schematics. So that's available in this board packet as well. Thank you very much.
And one caveat to that, I would say that the information that's in place for Centennial is definitely ahead of the curve or more accurate in this case,
Sure.
because it's based off construction designs, and that will be updated prior to the July 18th meeting, because we are expecting 100% documents from our team on June 18th, so we'll have those cost estimates to be updated.
Sure.
We'll say the Elder is, right now, the way it's read, is a combination of our initial designs, where it was phase 1, 2, and 3 with a cost cost parameter were included in both elements. So just be conscious of the fact when
Sure.
you're looking at the totals, it's including both Elder and Centennial. I believe I went through the costs independently last time. I could go through those again if need be. I don't know that we need to, but just be aware of that.
I would respectfully request that by the next meeting, you have a number for Centennial and a number for Elder. We don't, I mean, I can read through an engineer's estimate and discern the differences, but when we continue to publish information from 2023 that combines Elder, Centennial, 1, 2, 3, you're making people do too much work to try and understand the cost.
We should have the 70% on Elder by the next.
Even if we don't, do the math, distill out a number for Centennial and a number for Elder, please. And ideally, it would be updated to incorporate the 70% design.
We can look into seeing how we can best manage to do that with the information we currently have until we get that new information from the.
Now, there's a month between now and July, our next meeting. So
Sure.
if we task our consultants with that, give us a better estimate, distilled out for what we're designing and proposing Elder, I'm sure they can come up with it.
Right now, the way the consultants have it in their contract would be Friday, July 26th would be when we would receive that cost estimate. I don't have a problem distilling down our current cost estimate. I did in the last board meeting, and I can include that as well as part of the weekly updates if that's something the chairman might want to do.
We'll look into it.
Okay. Any other comments on the Elder Centennial Park and Beach project?
I have some questions, Costa. I read with interest that there have been minor changes in design. Could you summarize what these minor changes are, just by general topic?
Sure. So the general changes that have taken place at Centennial Park is we are looking to expand the ADA walkway from the parking lot all the way down to the beach, so that width will be widened the entire way. We have some slight grade changes on the bluff that are needed because of retaining walls and some of the infrastructure there. There have been some final choices made on the railing design and the ability to make those modular because they will fluctuate because the ramps and the stairs determine where they end at an elevation of 580 with a sand elevation of about 585, so we didn't want to have those just dying in the sand, creating trip hazards, so there's been some changes there. taking into consideration thoughts around the benches and the location of the benches on the pier. Those have been reworked as suggested and explained before. The selection of materials has been identified. There is now a compass rose that's integrated as part of the concrete for the end of the pier as a distinguishing element. One of the bigger changes is material selection for the boardwalk. We have pulled away from Ipe and we are looking to do colored stamped concrete instead for longevity and ease of use and cost reduction as well, being mindful of the drivers that the park board has suggested or expected staff to complete. Top of mind, those are the big ones, if you will. I'm sure I'm missing one or two. I apologize. But
thank you. That's just giving us a general idea of what we can expect. I read with interest your weekly report ending June 1st. You had a sentence, and it may be Greg that wrote this, that says, staff also met with structural engineering team to review the stair location regarding the current infrastructure and potential interference issues. Could you explain what that relates to?
Sure. So the existing steel seawall has deadman anchors that are set back behind there to hold it vertical. So there's no chance of the cantilever effect where the earth would push it forward. So there's deadman anchors. They're basically concrete blocks, if you will, that are set back with number 10 rod that connects the two. The design has a few elements where there is an interchange of where the staircase will bifurcate the actual steel seawall where it exists today, and the placement of the footing and the foundations needed for that. We just wanted to make sure that there wasn't an issue for interference where if the design would dictate that the stair or the footings would need to be here, and of course that's what one of the rods went through. So we went ahead, looked at a fixed point to measure from, ascertained where the deadman anchors were set, and then basically distill down those locations so the engineering team from Burke can go back and finish their design. So that's what that's in reference to.
Thank you. Finally, I think each one of you may have received a letter from my husband, John Root. And it appears that for at least the public, this may not be new information to you, Commissioner James, but I think it is to the public. And in his letter, what he was talking about was that in reading through the East Winnetka Strand stormwater proposal, there is reference to a need to respond to the 2018 IEPA order that deals with the reduction of contaminants, including E. coli, but also PCBs, mercury, and other contaminants. And then it appears that the Village of Winnetka is a plaintiff with the Village of Evanston and 6 other villages suing Monsanto with respect to PCB contamination that is flowing into the lake. And if you look at the Strand proposal, their focus, because I think of the large volume of East Winnetka that is collected and aggregated and then flowing, is the Elder Lane Stormwater Project. So within his letter, what he suggested was that it might be prudent, realizing that stormwater is a village issue, but park design is certainly the district here, that you might want to consider the wisdom of making Elder a swimming beach, particularly if you plan to move forward with all of this before the village has completed their East Winnetka Stormwater Project, which, in looking at the Strand proposal, looks like it is going to be quite significant. So those are his comments. As a commissioner, my comment is that I think we have a fiduciary duty to investigate this. I would hope that this would be part and parcel of our consultants, particularly the engagement of an environmental engineering consultant working with the village. It's just a question. And then finally, we've heard from our constituents. My husband wrote it in his letter. It makes sense to many people that people swim in clean water on Centennial and that dogs are relegated to a beach that historically has always been a problem. Hopefully, by the time the village concludes their East Winnetka stormwater project, it will be greatly mitigated. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Adam Simon, our attorney, to speak about the PCB issue because you have some expertise. And then I'm also going to ask Costa to say a few sentences about design elements that we included that I expect may be included again.
Thank you. I have some familiarity with the lawsuit that was referenced, where a number of North Shore lakeside communities are suing Monsanto or Monsanto's successor. To put it plainly, there is no allegation that there is a specific point source of PCB contamination coming from Winnetka flowing into Lake Michigan. The conditions exist in Lake Michigan that show that the concentration of PCBs generally in Lake Michigan is higher than people want. But that results from circulation of the water in the lake, from industrial contamination in other places. Once more, there is no allegation that anywhere in Winnetka has a specific point source discharge of PCBs. Because the level of PCBs in Lake Michigan generally is too high, the IEPA has created a limit that they're trying to achieve to lower PCBs in the lake. They speculate that surface discharge through storm sewer systems has a chance of contributing to PCBs. And so they want every community that discharges stormwater into Lake Michigan to adopt best management practices to try and eliminate or reduce that risk. So there is no identification of a point source discharge. There's no reason to believe that any of the communities who are plaintiffs have health emergencies because of litigation. Because there's a cost to implement best management practices, the communities are suing Monsanto to receive reimbursement of those best management practices costs. So I'm happy to answer questions about that. So.
Counselor, I respect your legal acumen. I'd feel a lot better if we had someone who was an environmental engineer speaking to these issues, and I suspect that during the village process with Strand, I know that will occur. I just want to read one thing. And again, it's my understanding.
I also want to give Costa enough time.
I will.
Yeah,
Let me
because
speak.
there were elements, but this is
I'm very pleased to have
Yeah.
an attorney talk about a lawsuit. I'm not pleased to have an attorney talking about scientific and technical information. And that is why I would appreciate that we investigate whether it is prudent for us to engage an environmental engineer to work on this. Thank you.
Costa.
Christina, I can only imagine that would you like me to kind of reiterate the design process that we completed previously for Elder?
Right. And just talk about we identified several elements that were going to go into the plan when the permits were pulled, before the permits were pulled in 2022. And that plan had several elements that were agreed upon by the village and ourselves to accomplish that water cleaning mission.
Correct. So as part of our design and based on earlier conversations and design work that we completed with the Village of Winnetka, the previous design for the previous stormwater project did include water quality structures that basically were sediment traps, a weird system that would take first flush contaminants and have those be suspended in those basins where those can then be cleaned out and removed prior to getting into the lake, causing further contamination.
And the location of those was almost right at Sheridan and Elder.
Correct. Those would be upstream structures of the outfall itself. So when you look at that, right at Elder Lane and Sheridan Road, just inside of that, where the pipes converge, and we were going to take it from the pipes that are existing to a 60-inch storm drain to the first manhole 3. Those were put in place. Newcastle structures, one for each outfall that was being diverted into the new layout configuration. would like to say that also further thought process on behalf, and I'm sure that, that's what Strand is doing now with the village, is to figure out the best management practice, also the design to figure out how to best, handle the stormwater. I'm not an expert on stormwater by any means. I've learned a lot based on the projects and my experience here in Winnetka, based on what they've done with the Skokie Playfield, with lagoons, and Cook County Forest Reserve. And the new practice is basically to hold the water and let it release at a slower pace with a sump that will allow those contaminants to sit in that sump and then be collected and then be removed properly. I would suspect, once again, I don't know this for certain, but I would suspect, based on just courteous conversations that I've had throughout this process, that the village is looking to do a similar setup, or in theory, a similar design concept over on the east side of Winnetka. But I know that Strand is a great engineering firm. We got a great team with Jim and his team over the village, and I can only imagine that whatever they put forward will be the best for this community.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much for that. And then I do want to close by saying that the quality of the water is 100% in the wheelhouse of the village. That is the village's stormwater pipe. That is the village's water quality. We will test water at swimming beaches. Warren?
Just to reiterate that in the 2016 Lakefront Master Plan, we contemplated rerouting the stormwater discharge to the north end of Elder and moving swimming to Centennial to separate swimming from the stormwater discharge. That remains our fundamental proposal. I did read the correspondence that's prepared by John Root. I noted in his exhibit, he still shows stormwater discharging through the current pier and stormwater outflow. Please note that our prior plans and our current plans contemplate relocating that discharge 200 plus or minus feet to the north and further out. Dilution is the solution. Stormwater that is naturally tributary to Lake Michigan can and will be discharged into Lake Michigan. Kenilworth stormwater discharge is a ravine just north of their public beach. It empties out at the, just north of where they put the kayaks in. There are plenty of other stormwater discharges up and down the North Shore. We so happen to concentrate one at Elder. We recognize the issue, but it's the village's role to guide and direct stormwater discharge. There are three components to stormwater management: collection, detention, and discharge. Collection is the grates, the inlets. Detention is the underground storage that Costa just referenced, and much like what we have underneath Duke Childs, there's a sump that has to be mechanically pumped out. It's that large volume of water, that first flush. What we talk about in the industry is the first flush. When we haven't seen rain in a while, there's plenty of contaminants on the roads. They get washed into that storm sewer, capturing that first flush, giving it a chance to settle out before the cleaner, newer water then reaches up to the level of the gravity discharge, and then it flows into the lake. That's a village matter. That's a huge number to do this, and it's going to likely require, if you've read Strand's preliminary reports, it's going to require cooperation from New Trier, because it's the only logical location that's the land area sufficient for underground storage. Discharge, the point of discharge, you really have only two viable options: Willow and Elder. Those are the existing discharge points. So, and the largest one is the 54-inch pipe underneath the pier. So we will continue to work in cooperation with the village, but this is fundamentally a village matter. And we have done what we believe is the level best, separating swimming at Centennial from discharge at north end of Elder. If there's further discussion as to the uses of Elder, that is separate and independent of the actual plan.
Cynthia, do you want to say anything?
Just seems like listening to the discharge concerns that the PCB and chemical discharge concerns are different from the sediment and physical pollution discharge concerns, or am I missing something with that? like the chemical contaminants are a different thing to manage than
The chemical
trash
contaminant
and the
is
things that were
the
being
entire
captured.
lake. The chemical is pervasive in the entire lake. The PCB quantities are higher than desired in the entire Lake Michigan. So it's not specifically attached to any one outflow. So they're attempting to gather funds in this lawsuit to pay for the best practices to mitigate the levels of PCBs, that exist in the entire lake.
Okay, but for the E. coli, the detention facilities that we had previously proposed, for example, don't do anything for E. coli?
I would say any contaminant that flows through those basins, if it's of a certain weight, will fall out of the water column as the water continues through. So depending on how long it can sit in those basins will allow for that to fall out of the water column. If in a large first flush, a lot of times there's a large amount of water, and if they're bypassed, then they're not functioning to the high capacity, but there's always potential risk. It's the, as Warren mentioned before, not tonight, but previously, the cross-contamination with E. coli comes basically from fecal matter. And the sewer connections and everything else that were identified and are cleaned up, the cross-contaminations, those all reduce the E. coli going into the
If you think we have a problem with a 54-inch pipe, imagine what Wilmette deals with when they open the locks of the North Shore Channel.
Yeah. Eric, did you have any comments?
I do not.
Okay. All right, we will be moving on to new business. Item number 6, the repeal and reinstatement of the ordinance regarding travel expenses. Shannon.
Okay, so this item is in regards to repealing and reinstating an ordinance number 546, which was regarding travel expenses. Previously, that was adopted on December 15th, 2016. So basically, we have looked at that ordinance and realizing that needs a little bit of updating to better serve our needs and make it a little more accurate just a few years later. So we have updated some of that information to include utilizing the definitions that are standardized in the Act, requiring pre-approval for out-of-state and overnight travel, and some of the things that we already do, but memorializing requiring receipts for reimbursement and adding a prohibition on mileage reimbursement in certain situations, like if someone has a vehicle stipend, that they wouldn't get mileage for use of the vehicle. And then updating reimbursable rates to current standards. So it's not a set rate, it's based on IRS determinations for per diem and that sort of track. Yes, yes. And I'll answer any questions if anyone else.
I don't have any questions. I researched the IRS, I researched the per diems. I have them here if anyone wants to know what those numbers are, but does anyone else have any questions for Shannon? Cynthia?
Just want to say, I think it's very appropriate this policy is updated, because when I looked at how low the reimbursements was, I was thinking, my goodness, when staff go anywhere, I mean, you really can't buy breakfast anymore for that amount of money anywhere other than fast food. Yeah, so thank you.
Aaron?
No questions for me.
None, thank you.
Warren? Okay. Is this the introductory reading, or can we waive the second reading and approve it tonight? Or is this a draft?
We don't have a committee meeting in the summer.
Correct.
And so
So this can be-
traditionally you
you
present
waive
something
it.
at committee and then finalize it at
Correct.
a board meeting. I don't recall there being a policy that requires 2 readings.
Perfect. Okay. So do you want me to read this entire resolution?
You can just read the title.
Excellent. May I have a motion to adopt ordinance number 602, repealing and reinstating regulation of travel, meal, and lodging expenses?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? That's a roll call vote, too.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Coto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 6.2, reciprocal program agreement for NSSRA full-time staff. Shannon.
Okay, so this item, when working with, so NSSRA, so that's the Northern Suburban Special Recreation Association, we have previously had an agreement with NSSRA that was done in April of 2022. It was approved for 1 year to offer their full-time staff certain benefits that are offered to Winnetka Park District staff if they were to choose Winnetka Park District as their designated home district. So that doesn't mean that they live in Winnetka, it's that if they, out of all of the 13 districts that are partners with NSSRA, they get to choose one of those districts and get the benefits that are offered towards for their full-time employees. So that was valid for 1 year, and it was different from what was offered to Winnetka Park District employees. What we looked at was making it comparable, so that if changes were made to the personnel policy on our end, that we wouldn't have to go and change the agreement with NSSRA, because some of those things would be the same. So it would just be based on what's in the personnel policy manual that we have for the district.
Good tracking.
It makes it easier that way. So what we basically have proposed is to put this in place for 5 years, that NSSRA full-time staff would receive the benefits that part-time and seasonal Winnetka Park District staff would get. My thought on that manner is we want to keep a little bit of recruiting oomph when it comes to getting the best employees to keep those full-time benefits for our full-time benefits. I was informed that with NSSRA, a lot of the other districts do provide what what their full-time employees get, so that is a little bit different than what we're proposing here. However, I feel that our benefits are very generous for not just full-time employees, but for our part-time and seasonal employees. But I did want to mention that it is different from what some of the other districts are doing, in that we're doing for their full-time staff what our part-time and seasonal staff currently get through our policy. Okay. I'll take any questions.
Cynthia, any questions for Shannon?
No, thank you.
Warren? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the partner agency and NSSRA employee reciprocal program and facility policy agreement?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Any additional discussion? I think so. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Coto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6.3, the surplus equipment ordinance number 603, Easy Go golf carts. Costa.
Christina, thank you. So as Miles mentioned earlier today, we are expecting new carts in the first half of January, July. I'd be a little bit late. In July here, one of the things that we need to do is declare our current fleet surplus so we can go ahead and get that sold out or sold off. What's been presented here this evening is ordinance number 603, authorizing and providing for the sale of surplus personnel and property of the Winnetka Park District of Cook County, Illinois. And what we are proposing as part of that surplus property is a list of 50 Easy Go golf carts. The serial numbers for those carts are attached in here. Currently, right now, it's been identified through Kemper Sports. This is one of their projects that they took on as part of the golf course operational role. Vince and his team had reviewed the initial point of sale, or in this case, trade-in value from Easy Go. That was roughly $1,000 a cart. Thinking that we can do better in the marketplace, they shop this a little bit further, and the best shopping that he was able to supply, or in this case trade in value, was from Raleigh our golf carts out of Peatone, Illinois, for the unit cost of, let's see here, $1,350 per cart. That would bring that total to nearly $67,500 versus the little over $50,000 that we would have received from EasyGo. Due to the turnaround time on this and the acceptance of the new carts, we do have a clause in there to make sure that we can retain the carts needed to serve functions for the 4th of July parade, so we can make sure that we have that set. So this year we would still have those available for commissioners for the parade route, and then be able to switch to the new fleet in August when we make the transition, and have those carts available for the opening day, when that would be in later this year. If I can answer any questions that the board might have, I'd love to be able to walk this through.
No. I have one question. The timing difference, glad that we will have the carts for the 4th of July parade, very fun. But the timing difference for the relinquishing of the EasyGoes to the acceptance of the new battery fleet, is that seamless?
Pretty much.
Okay.
We're gonna, Vince has that kind of set up. I will suggest that if this does get approved this evening, half of the fleet would probably be gone next week, and then the following half shortly thereafter.
Perfect. Okay. Good. May I have a motion to adopt ordinance number 603, declaring 50 golf carts as surplus equipment and approving the sale of the carts to Rolling our golf cars in Peatone, Illinois, for the sale price of $67,500.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Please, that's a roll call vote.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rath? Yes. Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Koto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 7, Executive Director's Report. Shannon.
These are always easy because they're all attached. But any questions on any of the weekly reports and legal expenses are attached as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Shannon?
Great job.
Really great job. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner comments. Please limit your Commissioner comments to 3 minutes, and we'll start with Cynthia.
I just wanted to give a big thank you to staff for the support of the Winnetka Music Festival. I know that it was a massive effort. I also appreciated seeing staff at our booth at the festival, so I hope that it was fun. But definitely it was a nice community event. Everyone had a good time. I think the residents appreciated the effort of different agencies to make it happen. The other feedback I just wanted to give is that I think the beaches look really great. I think the community is noticing. I was at Maple, I did see that things have been repaired, and so that was really great to see. And I think that those small improvements hopefully will continue to be noticed through the season in a positive way. So thank you.
Good. Kelly?
I want to thank Costa for the repair of the gabion baskets at Maple, and wondered if we could possibly get a ramp so that someone who is disabled can go from the parking area onto the boardwalk. There's still that gap. So I know you got a few things on your plate. I want to thank the Executive Director and the Director of Recreation for the Access Rec Beach mat that is, I guess, will be in Tower, and as I understand, you plan to do that for all of our swimming beaches. I'm sure that you're aware that there's an all-terrain wheelchair at the beach house in Tower. There's an all-terrain litter. I know I've noticed that some parks in your native state of Florida and also in California will have pictures of these devices as part of their website and give residents an opportunity of how they can check them out for use as we move forward. And as we are so focused right now, as we should be on ADA, it'd be cool if we could do the same thing. so people know that at least one is available, and hopefully more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing for me.
Warren? I just wanted to say two things. We got back our personalized report for the Winnetka Park District from the Illinois Association of Park Districts. And I know that we all took a look at it, but I just wanted to highlight two pieces. We are very often the first employer for many students in Winnetka, and we created a lot of first-time and part-time seasonal jobs, about 534 jobs, and that drove about $5 million in wages. That is anticipated. The assumption from the Illinois Association of Park Districts is that that money is largely spent in this community. So I thought that was worth noting, that we are an employer of distinction. Secondly, the farmers market had 2,259 people last week. And I was joined by my daughter for 4.5 hours, and I will be there this weekend again with Shannon and with Eric. So, and Warren will be shifting as well. So I look forward. Well, one of us won't be there. There will only be two. But I look forward to seeing anyone who wants to talk to me. There are about 19 farmers markets left. They go through October 26th. So please feel free to stop by. Thank you. That's it. May I have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.